Okay, I'm Jim Williams alongside Bill Phillips. We spent this past week at the Governor's Hurricane Conference in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, and we started out in the workshops early on Wednesday, starting with the hurricane decision-making scenario. Now, this was inside of a room. The internet connectivity was horrible in a lot of the rooms at the conference, so we could not record.
I tried to stream the majority of this conference or the workshops we attended live, and just couldn't do it because of the connectivity.
Yeah, it was really bad, but this particular room, it was pretty interesting because we had a lot of emergency managers there. And what the Weather Service would do is ask them a question like, a Category 2 is coming in 12 hours. What are your plans? What is your message to the public? And they would do that for each county, at least the counties that were represented there from the state of Florida. And it was a really interesting roundtable, but we did not record any of that. So after that, we attended the opening session where the governor was going to speak. Now, Governor Rick Scott spoke for about a really short speech. I think of all the years I've been attending these conferences, that was probably the shortest speech by a governor that I can remember. And he really didn't seem to be too well informed, and yeah, he didn't seem to be too interested in the whole hurricane scenario. Maybe he will become interested when we have a major hurricane hit the state. That'll change his whole opinion on that. But yeah, we had Bob Martinez after that, the former governor. He gave a really good speech, and then we recorded Bill Reed's speech. The current director of the National Hurricane Center, Bill Reed, did a really good job with that, and that is on the front page of Hurricane City in one of the video clips from the first day of the conference. So that ended day one of the Florida Governor's Hurricane Conference. Now, day two, we started out with Is a Hurricane Coming? Conveying Meteorological Uncertainty to the Public. And this is a workshop that was with Craig Setzer from local CBS 4. Yep, and he gave a lot of interesting statistics, such as like on a typical Wednesday in the evenings, the average viewer is woman. Yep, 73% are women, and the ages of 40 to 64, I believe. He said the demographic. Yeah, and it's just amazing statistics. And he also talked about the software he uses to create the graphics. When the National Hurricane Center puts out a forecast, they use this WSI program that creates the graphics that you see on the local news. And we also talked about the scaring the public with forecast and why not to say certain things to the public. And I asked them, for example, a major hurricane is coming, and the models have it hitting South Florida in 5 days, but the official forecast is still showing it moving northwest. Do you tell people that the models are showing it hitting in 5 days, or do you stick with the National Hurricane Center forecast? And he said, yes, we'll stick with the National Hurricane Center forecast. So, anything you wanted to add to that?
But yeah, but he did say if the models are trending a certain way, he may say look for the possibility of the cone shifting either south or whatever the models are corresponding to. Go on.
Okay, now the next workshop we attended was the National Weather Service Storm Surge Program, and this was Bill Reed was directing this program, this seminar. And he was talking about all the different scenarios for storm surge, and they brought up some really neat ideas they have for warning the public about what could happen in a storm surge event. And they really want to stick with the inundation, the elevations and how high the water is going to be in the elevations. And one way to do that would be to strap these color-coded things around stop sign poles. Yeah, it's like little rubber things they put around the pole that are different color-coded for different categories. And telling him how high the water will get on the stop signs, but they're running into a lot of political, backlash over that because the politicians don't want people knowing that the area could flood in a hurricane. They think it's bad for tourism. The other idea is putting a stick in the ground showing past hurricanes and how high the surge got in those hurricanes. So
there's also another possibility that we're talking about maybe a year or two down the road of adopting a whole new warning for storm surge.
So that's still a work in progress. There's so many different scenarios, high tides, the direction of the storm, how large is the storm, and that affects the storm surge. So we have a long way to go on that one. Now, the awards banquet, that was the next thing. This was the lunch, a very good lunch that day. A lot of people got awards in emergency management. That is recorded, and that is looping right now on the live feed at hurricanecity.tv. That was a real nice lunch. After lunch, we went and interviewed Dr. William Gray from Colorado State. That was a really good interview. Derek Sibley showed up on Thursday, and the three of us did the interview with Dr. William Gray. And Bill, everything was going okay. He was talking about his career and how he got into the business and everything else. And then Bill asked him a question that kind of set off a good firestorm in this interview. What'd you ask him, Bill?
I asked him, what would it take? We know that Dr. Gray is very controversial with his views of global warming. So I asked him, what would it take for him to reverse his views on global warming? And he basically said he would take his views to the grave and wouldn't change them. But that's just not it. This just set him off. The wheels came off after I asked this question.
Yeah, and he was against all alternative forms of energy. He was like, well, it'll cost too much money to implement it. It won't save the planet from the global warming due to CO2. And then he went on to say that CO2 is not that big of a driving factor in the Earth's atmosphere and blah, 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 and they should drill more. And I said, well, what if they put a bunch of oil rigs off the coast of Florida and you have Category 4s and 5s smashing them into the shoreline like we saw with Hurricane Ivan, and we have the Deepwater Horizon oil spill. We have all kinds of issues that could happen. So it was a really kind of a animated argument there for a little while, and that is also on the front page of Hurricane City. Then we interviewed Dennis Felkin, the public media director at the National Hurricane Center, and I asked him what was the most interesting story that's media event that's happened since he's been there, and he mentioned that there was a foreign language news crew that came in there and wanted to spend the whole afternoon there filming, and they were turned away from the Hurricane Center, and then they went to the head of NOAA and complained, and there was a whole big backlash over that. So they had made a new rule at the Hurricane Center: no more people come there unless there's an appointment. And not only that, but in order to get an interview with the guys at the Hurricane Center, you have to take a number, dip inside the hat, whatever number you are. That's the order in which you're going to be able to get interviews at the Hurricane Center when there's a hurricane coming. So a lot of interesting stuff in that interview as well. So after that, we attended a late afternoon workshop, and that is the Why Don't They Leave? And this was a really interesting workshop, Bill. We had a lot of discussion going back and forth about maybe the scare tactics they used from some of the local weather service offices, like during Katrina.
Right, and we apologize for not being able to record any of this, but it was really interesting. They were talking. We had a emergency manager from Pinellas County just basically said, "I would like to be able to scare my public more, but I feel like she couldn't because it would. She felt like she was being pressured from other political figures within the county and higher ups in the state going."
Right. And that was a really good roundtable. Brian Norcross was there. He was asking about not only the surge but the wind, and the wind can kill a lot of people, and people are encouraged to always stay in their houses, but some people don't have the proper protection and they should leave anyway, and the managers tell them not to leave. It was a really good roundtable. Again, like Bill said, we didn't get that recorded, but that was one of the better roundtables. So that wrapped up Wednesday. Then we came back on Thursday rather, and then we came back on Friday. We attended the main speech, in our opinion, the main workshop, and that was Dr. Gray's presentation of the Atlantic seasonal hurricane forecasting and the 2011 hurricane prediction, with him and Phil Klotzbach giving speeches. Those are both on the front page of Hurricane City right now, and that was recorded via iPhone. And some very good speeches from Dr. Gray. There was a lot of stuff I didn't agree with in the graphics. Billy, anything you want to add to that?
I just think that Dr. Gray, even though he is a legend in the business and he's done a lot for tropical meteorology, I just think he's stuck in his views, and I think the scientific community, for lack of a better term, has passed him by. I'll toss it back to you, Jim.
Well, he talks about the CO2 going up and hurricane landfalls going down. Therefore, CO2 being released is good because there's no landfalling hurricanes. Now, I guess that was a tongue-in-cheek comment. I'm not sure if that was what he was really trying to get across. But a lot of the graphics are kind of questionable, and you can twist stats any way you want. But the bottom line is the oceans continue to warm. The oceans, the temperatures of the globe continue to warm, and the ice is melting and the sea level is rising, and it's been happening for a long time. So I don't think this is a temporary thing due to the Atlantic thermal halide circulation, but we can go on and on about that. But Dr. Gray's a true legend in the business, and we have a great deal of respect for him. We just happen to have a disagreement on that. But that speech is very good, and it's about an hour and a half long between him and Phil Klotzbach. And Phil gave his predictions: 16 named storms, 15 or 16.
I think it's 15. It might be 16. We'd have to go back and look at the speech, but it's one of those two numbers.
And they're coming out with a new update on June 1st. And speaking of June 1st, I'll be right on back on the Hurricane season kickoff show on hurricanecity.tv June 1st, 8 p.m. Bill will be on there via Skype, and we'll go over the my city picks for 2011. What cities do I think are going to be affected? I'll release that, and you'll hear it on June 1st at the show. Well, that's it for now. Thank you again for visiting Hurricane City, and enjoy the videos on the front page. Thank you.